Scott just made
Go
the
back to
point.
Thomas
Jefferson
Jefferson, you'll
used to be
read
a lot more secure, not just.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Green, and it seems impossible, but after more than 6 years and over 1,500 segments, Trifecta has never asked one simple question. Where were you on 9/11? So now on the 14th anniversary of those terrible, cowardly attacks, we'll ask and answer that question. With me for just that, of course, Bill Whittle and Scott. Bill, you live on the West Coast. The attacks came to you early in your time zone. How did you get the news? What happened next?
It's funny you mentioned that, Steve, because there was just a sentence that happened there when I found out about it that I never forgot. And every time I tell the stories, even now it sends little chills down my spine. I don't know what time it was out here exactly. It must have been about 7 something. Usually I'm up pretty late and sleep pretty late. Got a phone call from my very, very good and old friend, Fritz. He just rang the phone and rang the phone, rang the phone. I finally picked it up and he said, "Turn on the TV." And I'm like groggy. He said, "Just turn on the TV." I said, "What channel?" And he said, "It doesn't matter what channel." I'll never forget that as long as I live. Doesn't matter what channel. And that's exactly what happened. You know, this funny thing for me, part of it was just waking up, and you know, you're a little disoriented when you wake up. But it also goes, I think, to the magnitude of what really happened. I turned on the TV, and when I first took a look at what was happening, for you guys who saw it more in real time in the East Coast, when I turned on the TV, the first thing I saw was one of the World Trade Center towers and a helicopter circling around it and a big cloud of dust. And I remember thinking very clearly, it's like, isn't that odd? I could have sworn there were 2 towers. I obviously must have been mistaken. I couldn't process it. I couldn't process the fact that there was, because I didn't see it go down, right? The second I turned on, one tower was down. I came in right in that little window. One tower was down, the other was still standing. And I remember thinking, man, I was pretty sure there were 2 of those. So obviously that can't be, I must be wrong, right? Those things don't just go away. Well, it turns out they do just go away.
Wow. Scott, Flight 93 went down not far from your old stomping grounds in Pennsylvania. What was it like there on 9/11?
I was at work. I was like most people, and I was actually making a phone call to one of our vendors. I was developing a couple of 100 websites that were all supposed to launch at the same time, and we had this database back end, and so it was just the mundane stuff that people do every day at work. And I called this vendor who worked out of their home and started talking to them about a database question, and he said, "Are you watching television?" I said, "Mark, I'm at work. Why would I be watching television?" Right. And he said, "We're under attack." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And we did have a TV in the lobby of the office where I worked. And so I went out to the lobby, and eventually everybody in the office was gathered around the TV. And after a while, I actually went to my best friend Harry's house and spent, you know, most of the rest of the day there watching the television coverage. And, you know, to this day, that line, "We're under attack," resonates with me. The other kind of searing memory that I have from that period of time was, you know, they suspended all air traffic in the United States and nothing is flying. And we lived in State College, Pennsylvania, under one of the landing or takeoff patterns for University Park Airport. And I remember being out in the lawn doing some yard work or something. And I looked up, you know, whatever it was, days or a week later, I looked up and an airplane was flying overhead. And I just watched it. I mean, normally, you know, so many airplanes go over, you don't pay no attention to it. I watched it all the way across the sky. And it was like I had never seen an airplane fly before.
Yeah, Colorado Springs, where I lived at the time, is a big Air Force town, of course, and it had never, ever been so quiet for an hour or two. And then after that, the F-16s were overhead almost 24/7, it seems.
Steve,
and then, of course,
can I throw something else in?
Yeah, please do, Scott.
I'm sorry. This is a crucial part. My first thought after I got off the phone was I called my sister-in-law, because my brother is a United Airlines pilot. And I called my sister-in-law, and as soon as she answered the phone, I said, "Where's Jim?" And she said, "He's in Colorado because he's in training to fly the next," I forget whether it was the 777 or whatever. And he's stuck in Colorado now because nothing's going anywhere. But he hit one of the flights that crashed that day was a flight that he occasionally flew. And,
oh, wow.
And that'll always stay with me too.
Oh, yeah, it sure will. My story starts off a lot like Bill's. I got the call from my mom a little after 11 in the morning. I was single, working at home, and most days I was sleeping very late, so I was still in bed at 11 o'clock Colorado time, and all she said, same thing, turn on the TV. I didn't keep a TV in my bedroom, so I ran across the hall to the guest room, turned it on, and there was a long shot of the Twin Towers, and this was just minutes after Flight 175 flew directly into the south face of the South Tower. So at this point, my first thing is I see both towers burning. We stayed on the phone for almost an hour, and that's when the South Tower collapsed. And neither one of us, we couldn't understand what had happened. There was so much smoke and dust you couldn't tell, and there was silence on the phone. And finally, one of us, I think it was me, but I couldn't swear to it, asked, "Where is it? Where's the tower? I think it's gone." And we stayed on the phone another half hour until the North Tower collapsed. And so the only thing I could think about was, believe it or not, I had ordered Melissa's engagement ring the day before, and all the airplanes had been grounded, and I didn't know how long it was going to take for that ring to arrive, or ever. It's the darndest things like that occur to you in the middle of a disaster.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please, Bill.
You know, I've been obviously looking at 9/11 footage pretty much every year for many years, and it was only about 3 or 4 years ago, so almost a full decade after it happened, that I saw something that I'd never really experienced before, and I can't recommend it highly enough. There was one person who was live on the phone calling 911 when the tower collapsed around him, and somebody synced up that video, synced up the audio footage, the transcript, with the photo of the tower collapsing. And for the first time after 10 years of watching these towers go down, for the first time, I got to watch one of those towers go down, and I got to hear the scream of a man who was inside the tower as it fell. And I'm telling you, that does something to that footage that does not do on its own. Just hearing one voice, that one scream, you can literally hear him floating in the air as the ground disappears underneath him. Really brings it home to you, and I recommend that you look for that on YouTube. I think Scotty maybe know what his name was, but it was blood-curdling.
You know, I wasn't going to tell this story today, but Bill, now that you mentioned that one, the most horrible thing I remember from 9/11 was later that night, Fox News had set up a video camera in front of a New York City hospital, where they'd set up a huge triage station out in the street to deal with what they assumed would be all these incoming wounded. And there was this pretty blonde doctor they kept cutting to out there, who finally, with tears in her eyes, said, "They're not bringing anybody in. There weren't enough wounded." But you know, what I take away from 9/11 isn't the confusion or the terror. Those are long gone. What I remember most is that our first counterattack in that new war wasn't special forces sneaking into Afghanistan a month or two later. It was that passenger revolt, a hastily prepared spoiling attack right on board Flight 93. It was led by Todd Beamer, just an ordinary American trying to get home. And I want you to take something away from this segment. That America, those kinds of Americans still exist. You see them showing up all on their own to defend military recruiting offices. You see them telling a cop at a gas station that, "I've got your back." Maybe you can get to see one in the mirror from time to time.
Get to see him on a French train, too.
That's right. That's right, on that French train. You know what? We've lost a lot in these last 14 years, but that America still exists. God bless her. For PJTV, I'm Steve Green.